President Trump and General Kelly. My name is Dana Gottesfeld, and I want to tell you about Justina Pelletier and how my husband has been wrongfully imprisoned for nearly 2 years by corrupt swamp dwellers for trying to save the life of a child. Here's a clip that InfoWars put together about Justina's story.
The outrageous case of Justina Pelletier should serve as a warning to parents who may be confronted by medical kidnappers and the tentacles of the state antagonizing honest families with cruel consequences. Justina Pelletier's horror began when the doctors and psychologists at Boston Children's Hospital diagnosed her with somatic symptom disorder. She had been previously diagnosed with mitochondrial disease from the Tufts University School of Medicine. An inexperienced Boston Children's Hospital doctor just 7 months into his internship was convinced that the pain Justina was experiencing, pain that felt like knives were cutting open her stomach, was all in her mind.
So many people could have said, time out. If Boston Children's is so gung-ho on this diagnosis, yet nobody else believes in it, nobody else is being able to be brought in to contest it. Her Tufts medical people totally blocked out.
Citing a concern for possible medical child abuse with zero evidence, Boston Children's Hospital then requested that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Department of Children and Families take emergency custody of the patient, as Justina's parents and sister were blocked by security guards. Justina was then made a ward of the state of Massachusetts.
She went from a healthy as could be young lady to a person now in a wheelchair, pretty much paralyzed below the hips, almost no physical strength above the hips. She has been totally medically abused.
Marty's story has been well vetted on both sides of the political aisle, from Rolling Stone to Michelle Malkin, Huffington Post, Newsweek, Red State, Daily Wire. It's a very well-established story. My husband, Marty, is a hero for trying to defend a child who was being tortured in a Harvard-affiliated hospital. This institution, Boston Children's Hospital, is incredibly powerful and influential, and their swamp tendrils reach everywhere in my neck of the woods in Boston. This is former federal prosecutor Carmen Ortiz, who brought federal hacking charges against my husband for trying to save Justina's life. She's heavily influenced and affiliated with Harvard, and she used to work at the Center for Criminal Justice there. Many of the prosecutors in the office are Harvard alums, and Ortiz has apprenticed under a Harvard professor. This is her replacement, William Weinreb, acting U.S. attorney and former treasurer of the Harvard Law Review. He took over Marty's case from Ortiz when she was shamed out of the First Circuit Court of Appeals shortly before Trump's inauguration. He also has done no investigation into Justina. He thinks of himself as a liberal humanitarian, but he is the worst kind of liberal hypocrite. He's also Harvard Law School friends with Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, who we believe is aiding the U.S. Attorney's Office in pursuing the inexcusable travesties in this case and keeping it away from the attention of Attorney General Sessions. This is Adam Bookbinder. He's the chief of crime for the Boston U.S. Attorney's Office. He's a Harvard alum and the one most responsible for my husband's wrongful imprisonment. He has no compassion, no concern for a girl that was reduced to a wheelchair by his alma mater's teaching hospital. His only concern and focus is indemnifying the torturers that put her in that condition in the first place, just because they share Harvard credentials. At Marty's latest hearing, I brought pictures of Justina, and Marty asked him to look at her, and he wouldn't. He wouldn't even look. This is Magistrate Judge Mary Ann Bowler. She worked at Harvard Medical School before becoming a judge, and her husband is a current professor there. Harvard Medical School, of course, oversees Boston Children's Hospital, the people that tortured Justina. Worse yet, she sits on the board of the Boston Foundation, a philanthropic organization that raises money for Justina's torturers. She wouldn't even recuse herself. Despite all of these financial conflicts of interest, she even signed the search warrant for our home. During closing arguments at Marty's detention hearing, she wouldn't even let his attorney get out the first sentence before she ordered Marty without possibility of bail. She has been repeatedly exposed by the New American and Red State. President Trump, you were elected to be the champion of the people and to drain the swamp. You were elected to protect kids like Justina and heroes like my husband. You were elected to drain the swamp so that Justina could have a civil rights investigation before the statute of limitations runs in February. And so my husband can finally come home. He should have never been in jail in the first place for protecting this child. The people that tortured and paralyzed Justina are the ones who should come to court with leg irons on.
On April 17th, 2014, 14 months into their saga with Boston Children's, Justina's family published one of the notes she had smuggled to them hidden in origami, saying staff hurt her all the time, deprived her of sleep, and more. In it, she asked people to please hurry. I saw her plea, and 3 days later, after months of other efforts to free Justina, Harvard-affiliated federal prosecutors say I defended her life by single-handedly knocking the $2 billion Harvard-affiliated hospital off the internet during its largest annual online fundraiser, costing Justina's torturers over $500,000 of the ill-gotten dollars they pocketed from Medicaid for paralyzing and nearly killing her. I showed the Harvard Pediatric Teaching Hospital, which receives more federal funding than any other, some $225 million annually, that they were still accountable for their actions, even if they have every court, every state and federal agency in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in their back pocket. I reminded them that no amount of other good work could justify torturing a single child, and that Justina and her family weren't defenseless.
Martin faces up to 15 years in prison and is currently weeks into a hunger strike. However, Martin's noble deed did have the intended effect and brought the attention Justina needed.